Okay, in this video, I'm going to discuss some warnings you might encounter while uploading QRiS or Riverscape project layers to ArcGIS Online and the solutions to those warnings. So right now I have a Riverscapes context project uploaded into ArcPro, and I've gone to Share, Web Layer, and Publish Web Layer. And I am analyzing this web layer for errors or warnings. And so this video will be discussing two of the warnings, 24138 and 24170, and how to remedy those warnings. So we'll start with this 24170 first, which states that layers contain a field type or field types that may not be fully supported in some clients. In videos where I've discussed uploading QRiS or Riverscape project layers to ArcGIS Online, I mentioned that I haven't run into any issues with that warning in terms of loading those layers into applications such as Dashboard or Experience Builder. It could be different on your end, but at least for me, I haven't had any problem with it. However, if your layer contains these field types such as big integer, time only, date only, timestamp offset, or a 64-bit object identifier, you can't take those layers offline. And so this prevents these layers from being transferred over into field maps where you can make offline maps. And so there's two ways to remedy this warning. You can either delete those fields that contain these field types in your layer. You can convert them into a field data type that is supported in all ArcGIS Online clients, such as like a string file. So you can transform your time or date fields into a string rather than these field types, so that that layer can be uploaded into field maps, for example, and taken offline. And then in terms of the 64-bit object identifier, you can downgrade it to a 32-bit object identifier. So to do that, in terms of downgrading the object identifier, we're going to be doing this in ArcPro. I've tried to do it in QGIS, either downgrading to a 32 or taking 64-bit object identifiers and downgrading them to 32-bit or changing them into a text field. And when I copy those over into a geo package to upload to ArcGIS Online, I get errors and those features do not copy over. However, we can do it in ArcPro here. So in the command search prompt, we will look for the create feature class under data management tools. We are going to create a new geodatabase to store this feature class. And so I'm just going to create one in here and just put a placeholder name of test and hit OK. We are going to name this feature class, which I'll just call it the intermittent drainage network. We'll change the geometry type to a polyline, and then we're going to put the template data set as the intermittent drainage network from the layer that's stored in the Riverscapes context project. So what this is doing is that it's transferring over all the fields in this intermittent drainage network layer stored under Riverscapes context and copying over those fields into our new feature class. Now for the object identifier type, we are going to change that to a 32-bit. We will keep the other options as default, and now we'll run. So now if we right click and go to the properties of our new feature class, we can see now that our object identifier is a 32-bit versus the one here, which is a 64-bit. And now we want to copy over those features from the Riverscapes context layer into our new feature class. And so to do that, we'll go to the append tool under data management. We'll put the intermittent drainage network from Riverscapes context as our input data set. Our target will be our new feature class, and then we'll change the field matching type to use the field map to reconcile field differences. And since this new feature class is templated off the one in the Riverscapes context layer, everything should be able to copy over fine. Now we'll run. And now if we open that, we can see that all those features have copied over. So this new feature class layer should now be able to be taken into field maps and taken offline, pending that we do not have any more fields that have a big integer, time only, date only, timestamp offset field data types. And so you can check those by right-clicking, going to data design and fields. And we can see that we have this feature date field here. So as long as that field exists as a date only, we will not be able to take this offline. So we can either delete that field, or we can convert it into a text or a string field type, or another field type that is supported by field maps. So that's how you can address this first warning. The second warning, which sort of ties into this one, into warning 24170, states that the pop-up definition for this layer includes measurement fields that are not supported online. So I think that just relates to pop-ups for these layers that do contain these field types that are not supported in all clients. However, to remedy this warning, you could just right-click on the layer and just disable pop-ups. And we could just reanalyze, and that warning should be addressed. So, all right, so just a quick recap. In this video, if layers contain a big integer, time only, date only, timestamp, offset, or 64-bit object identifier, that layer will not be able to be fully supported in all ArcGIS Online applications. It could work in some, but for example, in terms of field maps, it will not be compatible, and you cannot take your layer offline in those cases. So you can either delete these fields with these data types. You can change them into a field type that is supported by all ArcGIS Online applications. And for the 64-bit object identifier, you'll need to downgrade to a 32-bit. And then finally, just disable pop-ups. And once you do that, you should be able to use those layers in field maps and take them offline, pending there's no other warnings or errors when sharing to ArcGIS Online. All right, I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.